I'm Ariel Ford at Evoke Entrada. I'm an assistant field director, and I was in the field for about a year and a half.
What are some of the ways that you like to engage with students? Some of the
Um, I think when I come into a group and I meet new students, I sit down and listen, because I think that is something that was difficult for me and still is difficult for me sometimes, to just talk about myself and what's going on for me. And so I kind of extend that hand to them and just listen to their story and learn more about them and figure out what they like and what they do for fun and why they're here, and hear their side of it, and just get to know them. I think that's the biggest piece in my experience with students or participants in general, is they just want to be heard, and they don't feel heard until they come here. And once they feel heard, there's that desire to be defensive, or that desire to not take accountability for the things that they've done or behaviors that have happened. It kind of goes away, and then they become more open to hearing what you have to say, because now they've been heard. Yeah.
Before we were talking about some initiatives and stuff, and you had mentioned some that you liked.
Yeah. My favorite is the water bottle initiative. It's basically, you get to create this world as an instructor for the students or participants. And what I like to do is put them on an island where they don't have any resources and all they have is each other. And so I draw a circle in the ground and take their waters and First what I do is I have them lay down in the circle with their feet toward each other and then their heads facing out of the circle, and then they place their water bottles behind them, and then they all get in a circle on the island, and suddenly there's an earthquake or some natural disaster where they're stuck on this island, they can't get off, and it can be whatever. It could be a planet, it could be whatever your imagination tells you. And basically they have to figure out a way to get to their resources or their water bottles without stepping outside of the circle. And so it's just really fun and interesting to watch the dynamic between the group and how they figure out how to get those resources and work with each other. And there's a lot of laughing and trust falling, and sometimes people get really angry, and so it just highlights a lot of the things that are underlying in the group. And so it's my favorite because it's fun and tells you a lot about the group, and so it selfishly makes the job a little bit easier because you can see what's going on.
And you're talking about seeing what's going on, and I think a lot of times we focus with initiatives on processing afterwards. But talk a little bit about what an instructor needs to be doing as far as observing what's going on to get the most out of an initiative.
Yeah, so things that I'm looking for when I'm running an initiative are who the leaders are, who's leading by example, who's talking the most, who's not talking, what types of communication are they using, is someone using passive communication or someone being aggressive, or is everybody working together and equally talking the same amount, or allowing space for someone else to speak. And also holding hard boundaries. So when someone steps out of the circle, do you start them from scratch? I mean, yeah, I do, because that's part of it, and watching that frustration happen, and what do they do when someone holds hard boundaries with them? Are they freaking out and swearing at you, or are they okay, you're right, this was the line and now I've crossed it, and how are they processing that? And so those are the things I'm looking for during the initiative, and then afterward talking to them about what worked, what didn't work, what types of communication, and so bringing some of those things to their attention, and then kind of using your discretion on what you talk about afterward.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Besides initiatives, what do you like to do with the students?
Let me think.
What's your favorite part of the day?
My favorite part of the day. I'd say, so I have a couple answers. My favorite my favorite part of the day tends to be the downtime, and mainly because that's when a lot of conversation happens and you get to really engage with them, like maybe at dinner, and delve into some deeper conversations about like home life or what's going on and getting to know them a little bit as far as that goes. I like hard skills. I like to do busing with them. Busing especially because it's difficult and it's rewarding for them and for me to see them succeed at it, because it's difficult. In general, it tends to be difficult for people.
You're probably a good person to ask about self-care for instructors.
Yes. Self-care. Man, I could talk forever about self-care. It's super important. I neglected it for quite a while. I don't think I took a vacation for the first 9 months that I worked here, and that was a mistake. So I'm a big advocate for self-care. Ways that I did take care of myself though in the field were out of the field, were like going to therapy and working through my own personal issues and like doing things that I love to do, like sign language or dancing or whatever. And so I think, yeah, maintaining those interests are definitely important outside of the field. Having a community, whatever that means for you outside of the field. Yeah, and taking vacation before it's necessary, before you feel like, okay, I'm done, I need to get out of here, and making sure that you're aware and self-aware about like what's going on for you and when you need a break. So.
How long have you had Maverick?
I've had him a couple months now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you were working in the field, you didn't have him?
No, I had another dog, and I was gonna bring her out into the field, but she was old and it was stressful for her. So, yeah. Then I got Maverick, and I've brought him out to the groups a couple times, but he has never spent a full 8 days out in the field. But the groups love him. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh my gosh, he's a wolf. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. So how is that for students with having the dogs in the field? Because that's not the case everywhere. So.
Yeah, I think it's great for most of them. I mean, as long as they're not afraid of dogs, then obviously that's not the best experience for them at first. And I find that because of the demeanor that the dogs tend to have in our program, that it shifts. So, yeah, the dogs all are required to be able to get along with other dogs and be friendly to strangers and all of those things. And so, I think, especially with one of our therapists, he had 2 dogs. One unfortunately passed, but his dogs were especially friendly, and that was one of the highlights for the students in the week. Is the therapist is here, but really the dogs are here, and he makes a joke about how the therapists are actually the dogs, not him. And so, yeah, I think overall it's a positive experience that there's this animal that they get to just like pet and take care of, and kind of like that same metaphor with with our health and wellness is just like giving them something to give positive attention to, and then like feel better in general, just like changing their mood, especially when they're sad, because I think dogs tend to have that intuition where they're like, oh, you're sad, I'm gonna come lay next to you, and so it's just a sense of comfort overall. And I'm sure there's some research that I could quote, but I don't know it offhand, that shows that dogs are great for people when they're having difficult emotions.
Thanks for watching. Please like this video and subscribe. The Primitivus Project is made possible by the generous sponsorship of Wingate Wilderness Therapy. To learn more, visit wingatewildernessTherapy.com.